Sunday dinners had always been an obligation, not a celebration, but tonight was different. The tension didn't just linger, it buzzed in the air like static before a storm. I sat at the far end of the long oak table in my mother's house, my fingers tracing the pattern in the tablecloth, trying not to look up at the faces around me. Houston nights were still warm in early fall, and yet I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Venus, my sister, was dressed to impress, as always. She waited until everyone had taken their first bites before clearing her throat dramatically. "I've been thinking a lot about the future of the family," she began, sipping her wine like she was at a board meeting. "Here we go," I thought. She didn't waste time. "I want the company." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "The finance firm," she said, enunciating every word like I was hard of hearing. "You should sign it over to me. It's only fair. It was built on the family's name." My fork paused mid-air. Mom didn't look surprised. Neither did my older brother, Derek. He stared into his mashed potatoes like they held the secret to the universe. "You've got to be kidding," I said, forcing a laugh. Venus tilted her head. "You wouldn't even have the company if it weren't for this family. The connections, the reputation." I felt the heat rising in my cheeks. No one helped me build that business. I took out loans. I worked 3 jobs. Mom cut me off, her voice soft but loaded. "Don't act like you did it all alone. Who raised you? Who fed you, clothed you, paid for your education?" She leaned forward, hands clasped on the table like she was giving testimony. "I worked double shifts while your father walked out on us. I sacrificed." The word echoed in my head. Sacrificed, like I owed her interest. "You can't be serious," I said. "This is my life's work." Venus waved a manicured hand. "Oh, please. You're not married. No kids." "What are you even saving it for?" "Boundaries, Venus. Learn them." "Don't be dramatic," Mom snapped. I looked at Derek, searching for something. Support, sanity, maybe just a flicker of brotherly concern. Nothing. He kept his head down. Venus leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "I spoke to a lawyer. You might want to check the trademarks and paperwork. Some of it's family shared, you know?" A threat, wrapped in casual cruelty. This wasn't a conversation. It was a setup. "I'm not handing over my company," I said flatly. Venus's smile tightened. Then it happened. Mom stood up slowly, walked around the table. For a moment, I thought she might hug me or at least put a hand on my shoulder. Instead, she slapped me. Hard. The sound rang through the room like a gunshot. My face stung, but it was the silence that followed that cut deeper. Even Venus looked thrown off for a second. "You ungrateful little girl," Mom hissed. The room blurred. Not from tears, but from memories. Being 13, crying because I got a B on a test, and Mom saying, "Stop embarrassing me. You should be grateful you even have a roof over your head." It was the same voice, same tone. I stood up, hands trembling. "You never wanted a daughter. You wanted a pawn." Venus smirked. "That's rich coming from the golden child." I walked out, not bothering to take my purse. My legs carried me like they had a mind of their own, down the hall, past the family portraits filled with fake smiles, and into the guest room. I didn't bother turning on the light. I sat on the edge of the bed, the silence wrapping around me like a heavy coat. My cheek still burned. But it wasn't the slap that hurt most. It was the confirmation. They never saw me as one of them. I stared at my hands. They were shaking, and yet my mind was clear. Sharp. Maybe I should just walk away. Let them have it. Let them destroy each other. But then I thought of the nights I spent curled up on the office floor, running numbers until sunrise, of signing checks with trembling hands, praying they'd clear, of how none of them had lifted a single finger to help. And still, "We're family," Mom had said so many times. "We share everything." I opened my laptop and began typing an email. Not to surrender, to prepare. That night, as I stared at my trembling reflection, I realized they never saw me as family, only as a tool, I didn't sleep much after that dinner. My cheek still pulsed with the dull memory of Mom's slap, but it was the silence afterward that stayed with me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling in the guest room, feeling like a stranger in a house that used to be mine. Morning came heavy, and with it, a phone call that changed everything. It was Martin, my attorney. His voice was tighter than usual. "You might want to sit down," he said. I didn't. I stood, barefoot on the cold floor. "There's been an update on your company's shareholder records. Someone submitted a transfer form naming Venus as the new primary owner." I didn't say anything. He continued. "The signature's yours, but I cross-referenced it. It's a scan from a document you signed years ago. They cropped and pasted it. Sloppy, but dangerous." I swallowed hard. "So it's fraud. It's premeditated. They didn't just come up with this over dinner. This has been in motion for a while." I looked out the window, Houston's morning light filtering through the blinds. My heart was racing, but my mind had already begun calculating. I had let them walk all over me for years. Not anymore. "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Start documenting everything. Emails, texts, even verbal conversations. Log them with timestamps. We're going to build a wall before they realize you're on the move." I hung up and opened my laptop. Emails from Venus suddenly read differently now. Casual check-ins asking about paperwork or admin access that once seemed harmless now reeked of manipulation. Every passive-aggressive text from Mom felt like a breadcrumb leading to this moment. They didn't just ask. They planned, behind my back, like vultures circling a prize they thought was already theirs. By midday, I drove to Mom's house. I needed answers, or at least the illusion of confrontation. They were all there. Venus perched on the edge of the couch, looking wounded. Mom stood near the fireplace. Derek, as usual, hovered by the door, as if being closer to the exit made him less responsible. "You forged my signature," I said. No preamble. Venus's eyes widened in fake disbelief. "Excuse me?" "Don't play dumb." "I didn't do anything," she said. "I had my lawyer look into possibilities. Maybe there was a mix-up." Mom stepped in. "You're being hysterical." That word, hysterical, I could feel the sting of it more than the slap. "You always take things the wrong way," Mom continued. "You misread people. You always have." Derek chimed in, barely above a whisper. "Maybe you misunderstood her tone. Venus just wanted to help with the business. You've been so distant lately." There it was, the gaslight. "You've changed," Mom added. "Ever since the company started growing, you've gotten cold, arrogant." I stared at all three of them. This wasn't defense, it was an attack. A psychological ambush disguised as concern. I left without another word. Back in my car, I sat with my forehead against the steering wheel. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the mind-numbing swirl of doubt they'd triggered. I started asking myself questions I already knew the answers to. Was I overreacting? Did I imagine the threat? Was this all a misunderstanding? Then I remembered something my law professor once told me. Gaslighting only works when you doubt your memory more than their motives. I pulled out my phone, hit play on the voice memo I'd recorded last night, something I did out of habit whenever a conversation felt off. The recording crackled, then played clearly. Venus's voice. "You should sign it over to me. It's only fair." Then Mom. "I sacrificed. We all did." And then, the slap. It was all there. Real, unfiltered. I sat up straighter. I opened my text thread with Martin. "We proceed," I typed. Quietly. That night, I returned to my office. Lights off, laptop screen glowing. I started drafting a memo to lock down all internal transfers, freezing any movement of shares unless personally approved by me. Then I pulled out my father's old board files. He'd left me access to names that hadn't surfaced in years, men and women who still respected the values he built the company on, people Venus wouldn't even think to call. I mapped them out, one by one. I knew who to trust. And then, in the quiet of that room, I spoke the words I had been afraid to think. I used to believe silence kept the peace. Now I know, It only protects the powerful. I didn't want revenge. I wanted control, and I was taking it back. What they didn't realize was, by trying to take everything from me, they gave me back the one thing I'd lost: clarity. Tuesday night brought rain, slow, steady, then angry. I sat in my home office, surrounded by unopened mail, old files, and that thick, stale air of things left undone. The kind of air that clings to you when you've been carrying too much pain for too long. I thought organizing my desk would help, stacking chaos into neat little piles so my brain could breathe. But when I opened that bottom drawer, digging through old college notebooks and forgotten receipts, I found it. A plain shoebox. I didn't remember putting it there. Inside, ticket stubs, photos, my old ID badge, and then a cream-colored envelope, sealed, with my name in my father's handwriting. My heart stopped. It was dated 6 months before he died. I held it for a long time. Fingers trembling, afraid of what it might say, afraid of what it might confirm. When I finally opened it, the paper inside smelled faintly of his cologne. The script was neat, careful. I heard his voice with every word. He wrote about legacy. About strength. He told me that he'd always known I'd outgrow the family's shadows, that my path was different, that I didn't owe anyone anything for what I'd built. Then, this. Venus is clever, but not kind. Watch her. And don't hand over what you bled for, no matter what anyone says. This company is your name now. Don't let them erase that. I read it again, and again. Dad knew. All those years of being told I was selfish, too ambitious, not a team player. He'd seen through it. He saw me, and he saw them. I cried, but it wasn't weakness, it was recognition. The kind that hurts because it arrives too late to say thank you. That letter didn't just comfort me, it validated everything. The guilt, the hesitation, the way my family made me question my own reality. Dad had warned me, quietly, deliberately. I thought back to something Mom told me years ago, when I hesitated to take on a bigger role at the company. "Your father didn't think you were ready," she'd said, slicing the air with her voice like it was fact. But now I knew. That was a lie. He had always believed in me. She was the one who didn't. I sat there for over an hour, staring at the letter, then the ceiling, then nothing. Memory after memory came flooding back. Mom redirecting my ideas, Venus talking over me at meetings, Derek pretending not to hear when things got ugly. It was never just bad behavior. It was a pattern, a strategy. I opened my laptop and started building a timeline, not just for court, but for myself. Every manipulation, every gaslight, every betrayal laid out like evidence. I wasn't looking to settle scores. I was preparing to end the game. When someone rewrites history long enough, I murmured, even the truth starts to feel like fiction. But not anymore. I made digital copies of the letter, uploaded them to a secure cloud, printed one for the safe in my bedroom. Then I wrote to Martin. "My father's letter confirms everything. I'm ready to proceed." No explanations, just truth. I knew the letter wouldn't be the weapon I'd lead with, but it would be my sword if I needed it, and my shield, too. Later that night, I wrote a draft statement to call an emergency board meeting. Nothing emotional, just facts, authority, control. As thunder rattled the windows, I looked up from my screen and caught my reflection in the dark glass. For a second, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She wasn't scared. She wasn't begging for approval. She was ready. "They've underestimated the wrong daughter," I whispered. Chapter 4. When the world reads my name. I walked into the ballroom in Houston that evening feeling steadier than I had in weeks. My dress was sharp, shoes polished, hair pulled back, not for show, but because when you own something, you wear it like armor. The glow of chandeliers, the clink of glasses, the low hum of conversation. It all felt familiar and foreign at the same time. I saw Venus across the room, greeting people like she belonged in every headline, every photo. And in a moment, I realized how many believed she already did. They introduced Venus as our company's inspirational CEO. Her speech echoed through the hall before she even stepped on stage. The slide behind her showed graphs, designs, projections, my work, unlabeled. The applause began. I sat there, in my seat, clapping along, my throat tight with something sharp. They quoted lines from my slide deck, phrases I stayed up nights writing. Not once was my name mentioned. Not once was acknowledgement given. It wasn't oversight. It was omission. People I once trusted looked at Venus with admiration. Strangers who should have known better asked me politely, and then ignored me. "Are you one of the board members?" they'd ask, with curiosity that died on their faces when I responded. Later, someone whispered to another, "Is she just here because she invested?" I caught that. I felt it. I glanced toward Mom. I saw guilt flicker, then vanish. Silence. Memories hit hard. College days when I stayed late to perfect layouts, to write reports that got taken without credit. When someone would say, "If you don't yell, no one will hear you." And I believed that for years. That unless I shouted, my voice would fade into white noise. A guest at our table pulled out their phone, showing a financial magazine feature. It listed Venus as the creator of a financial strategy I had developed. The headline, "Venus, Visionary CEO." I felt my chest tighten. I quietly opened my phone and hit record, catching their conversation and that magazine title, for proof. The drafts I made months ago, they were identical. The language, the concept, all mine. I didn't stand up then. I watched. I collected. There was power in the silence, when truth sat heavy between the soft laughter and polite applause. After the speech, Venus was gracious in front of me, smiling, nodding, all polished charm. "You always overthink things," she said under her breath, as though I wasn't already listening to her take up space that belonged to me. That pushed me further, spiral of frustration, then resolve. Taking a deep breath, I approached the stage, a space she assumed she owned. I asked the MC for the microphone. "Calm as a lake before a storm," I said. "I'm glad you used my slide deck tonight. I hope everyone here knows who built it." My laptop, slides, email timestamps, design files came alive on the big screen. Gasps, shifting seats. Venus's face lost its perfection for a moment. Mom's smile seemed brittle. I didn't scream. I didn't break. I spoke with authority, with evidence, with names and dates. Tonight, everyone saw my name, whether they wanted to or not. The message came late Friday afternoon, right after I'd closed my laptop and thought I could reclaim a few quiet hours. Mom's text popped up in the family thread. "Family dinner Sunday. No business talk. Just us. No emojis. Just a firm, motherly command dressed as casual invitation." I stared at it a while. No business talk wasn't a request. It was a muzzle. After the gala, after everything that had come to light, this wasn't reconciliation. This was control dressed in comfort. Still, I said yes. Not because I owed them anything, but because I needed to say something, and I needed to say it while they were all there. On Sunday, I wore gray slacks, a soft beige sweater. No jewelry. Neutral. I didn't show up as a threat. I showed up as a boundary. Their house hadn't changed. Still smelled faintly of cinnamon and lemon cleaner. Still too quiet, too polite. Venus greeted me like she hadn't tried to erase my name from our legacy. "You look rested," she said, which meant, "You looked stressed last time." Mom was all warm gestures and quick glances, her voice sweet, too sweet. "You're working so much lately, baby. I hope you're still making time for family." Dinner moved forward with baked chicken, overcooked asparagus, and conversation dipped in passive aggression. "You always wanted to do things your own way," Venus said with a smile as she passed the rolls. A cousin I hadn't heard from in months leaned toward me mid-meal. "So, what was all that drama at the gala? Looked intense." He smirked like it was a game, like my name was trending for fun. My brother David tried to redirect. "Let's not make tonight about that." Of course he didn't defend me. He never does. He keeps the peace by standing in silence. Inside, I stayed still. Outside, I poured tea. Calm hands, steady voice. I let them pretend they were winning. After dessert was served, pecan pie, store-bought, I set my fork down. The silver clinked louder than expected. I looked up, first at Venus, then at Mom. I came here tonight to make something clear, I said. Conversation slowed, then stopped. I'm not here to argue or to rehash the gala. I'm here because too many lines have been crossed, and from this point on, I'm drawing my own. Mom opened her mouth. I held up a hand. I'm not finished. I reminded them, gently, surgically, what had been taken, my work, my name, my father's legacy, twisted into something unrecognizable. You may believe I'm being emotional or dramatic, but I'm not here for your comfort. I'm here because silence isn't kindness, it's surrender, and I will not surrender my life's work to anyone, family or not. They shifted. Venus stared, unreadable. Mom gave a soft laugh, like this was all too heavy for Sunday dinner. Honey, no one's trying to hurt you. I leaned forward, steady. If you continue trying to take what's mine, through courts, through headlines, through whispers, I will take it back. And I won't ask for permission. I'm not asking for peace. I'm warning you about consequences. They didn't know whether to laugh or be afraid, so they did both. Nervous chuckles, raised brows. Come on, we're family, Venus said, her voice flat. I stood up, pushed in my chair slowly. I know exactly what we are. Then I thanked them for the meal. No hugs, no pleasantries. I walked out with my head high. I pulled into the parking lot of the old family restaurant just as dusk softened into evening. The sky was bruised purple and gray, storm front moving in. I parked, unbuckled, and laid one hand on the steering wheel. My pulse was steady, but my stomach knotted. This dinner meant more than a family gathering now. Stakes. Everything hinged on tonight. Delphine opened the door with a smile so tight it looked brittle. Mom stood close behind, greeting me in that hollow tone of hers, the host's facade. Wine glasses clinked, and guests offered polite nods. The waiter led me through the room, past tables with low conversation and candlelight, to a seat beside the restroom. A few glances came my way. Eye rolls, murmurs. I held them off. Straight gaze, calm breathing. Bitterness spread like ice in my chest. They wanted me to feel small, token, visible, but unseen. Appetizers, fried okra, shrimp cocktail, barely tasted like food. My throat was tight. Then the envelope arrived. Dad's handwriting, unmistakable. My hands shook as I retrieved it. For Madeline, it read. I opened it at the table, pressed between linens and forks. The will stated clearly, I was to inherit majority control of the finance company, on condition there was no proof I'd misused funds. A paper wound through with tension, danger. Mom diverted her eyes. Delphine whispered under her breath, Old paper doesn't matter anymore. Fear clutched me. This will was a bombshell, some knew. More could be undone. I tucked it away, didn't show it yet, not here, not to them. During the main course, Mom leaned over to whisper something mundane about the weather. Behind her, I caught someone whispering, They put her by the restroom again. I looked up. A guest, well-dressed, smirked. It was meant to hurt. I forced calm, sipped water. I remembered Dad's words. Your worth is not where they seat you, but what you build. That whisper carved something inside me. I didn't explode. I ordered a quiet drink, held my composure. Later, I stepped outside under a covered walkway. Rain threatened. I opened the will from my bag, the only evidence they couldn't dismiss. I called Wes. We have the will. It's time. My voice didn't shake. I walked back inside. Mom reached for my arm. I pulled away. She froze. No warmth in her eyes. No apology. Only that expectation I'd behave correctly. Dinner ended. Conversation dwindled. Guests finished their plates. The lights dimmed. I rose. No one asked me to stay. I smiled politely. Walked to the exit under murmured goodbyes. The air outside was cooler. Thunder rolled. They believed I would stay silent. Tomorrow they will hear my voice. Every board member already has the proof. I got into the office before sunrise. No music, no coffee yet, just the quiet hum of the HVAC and the sound of my heels across polished tile. I dropped my bag on the chair and turned on the desk lamp, its soft circle of light spilling across folders, hard drives, sticky notes I'd written to myself in the middle of many late nights. Wes came in 20 minutes later. He didn't have to say anything, just handed me the sealed file and gave a short nod. Everything inside had been verified. Emails, draft files, voicemails, signatures, timestamps, enough to stop any attempt to twist the truth. Again. I sat there in silence, rereading one of the articles Venus had given to a business blog. She called herself the visionary force behind the company's investor pivot. I read that line twice. I didn't feel rage anymore, just a steady, clean resolve. I sent a brief message to each board member. Clarification on recent press materials coming today. Please review the attached notes before our meeting tomorrow. I kept it factual, no emotion, let the truth carry its own weight. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown sender. At first I thought it was spam, but when I opened it, what I saw froze me. Screenshots of emails. Venus bragging to a freelance journalist about leading the client deal I spent a year building from scratch. She attached mock-ups I'd created, cropping out my initials. The dates showed she'd sent these months before the gala, weeks before I knew she was claiming my work. Another message followed, a voicemail. It was one of our junior analysts whispering into her phone. Hey, just wanted to say, I know those decks were yours. Everyone does, but Venus said to stick to the script. I'm sorry. I saved it all, compiled the files, didn't respond. I thought about what my dad always told me. Truth may be delayed, but never denied. That afternoon, I hosted a private video meeting. All board members joined. Some in suits, some clearly still at home. My face was calm, my voice steady. I didn't raise it once. I started with the basics, dates, roles, contributions. I opened the slide deck, the real one. I played the voicemail. I read from emails Venus had sent, word for word. Some board members sat back in their chairs. One covered her mouth. Another kept adjusting his collar. Venus joined 10 minutes in, tried to interrupt. This feels combative, she said. I didn't look at her, just kept presenting. These are not feelings, they are records. She tried to joke. I didn't laugh. She brought up misunderstood communication. I brought up PDF timestamps, legal record logs. Every piece of evidence had weight. By the end, no one was interrupting. The next day, a call came from a journalist at Sloan Review. I recognized the name, June Sloan's team. We've received materials, she said. We want your comment before going public. I didn't hesitate. I sent a summary, just the facts, no personal story, no emotion. But I added one sentence they quoted directly. They tried to erase me by rewriting my credit, but I built more than they ever knew. That line spread faster than I imagined. Media pieces ran side by side, some praising my resilience, others wondering if this was a family spat gone corporate. I didn't engage. I stayed off camera, let the truth sit in their hands. Mom texted, I think we should talk. No punctuation, Venus emailed. If you had concerns, you should have come to me first. I didn't reply. I stood at the window of my office that evening, lights of the city flickering like quiet applause in the distance. My name hadn't just been spoken, it had been heard. They wanted silence. They'll remember my voice now. I stood in front of the glass doors of the Houston Conference Center before dawn, my briefcase in hand and Wes at my side. The city was just waking. Street lamps still glowed orange, early commuters drifting past. I adjusted my jacket and took a breath. Never been more aware that this moment could change everything. Inside the ballroom, board members, media, investors already talking among themselves, voices low, smiles polished. Venus swept in with her entourage, jaws set, confidence like armor. Cameras flash, whispered greetings. It felt like watching someone else's parade. The crowd's eyes followed her steps. Behind that, though, I saw hesitation, some glances of recognition in corners of the room. I felt their doubt before I spoke. When the meeting started, Venus gave the opening address. Charming words, big promises. She thanked everyone for her team's hard work. Slide after slide shown. Strategies, projections, my strategies, my designs. My voice drowned out by applause. I stood, walked toward the podium. Eyes shifted. Venus's eyes widened. Before she knew it, I had the microphone. I played the montage I'd prepared. Early design drafts with my name in metadata. Emails showing my drafts, my idea sketching. Voice recordings of meetings where Venus presented my ideas as hers. Evidence, I let it speak. Investors leaned forward. Some frowned. The tension in the room turned electric. Venus tried to interrupt. Moderator called order. My heart pounded, but my voice didn't falter. She called it character assassination. Mom winced. A board member cleared throat. I responded calmly. Dates, signatures, versions, all lined up. The moderator backed me. Media cameras caught every expression. Venus's mask cracked. A whisper. Apology? But no words came. Another voice in the audience demanded correction in future articles. Someone asked for a statement from Venus. She paused. Stuttered. I held the moment. When the press conference began just after noon, I stood before a sea of microphones. Reporters leaned in. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse with insults. I said, I didn't ask for this spotlight. I only asked to be seen. I presented the proof. Documents. Recorded voicemails. Email threads. I showed past publications wrongly attributing my work. I asked them to correct the public record. I said I sought no grandstanding, just truth. Mom appeared then, stepping forward, wanting reconciliation. I nodded politely, then turned away. Venus's expression flickered. Lifeless apology hung unspoken. Media pieces published side by side. Some applauded my clarity, others called it family drama finally exposed. In the end, as I left the podium and made my way through the back corridors, I felt triumph. Not vengeance, but justice. Bittersweet, because I shouldn't have needed proof to be recognized. But I was recognized. Tonight, my name isn't whispered behind curtains. It's printed, spoken, seen. The morning light in Austin has a different kind of softness to it. Less harsh, less burdened. My new office space is modest. No marble floors or grand statements. Just tall windows, white walls, and a team of people I chose because they believed in work, not show. I opened the door myself. No receptionist greeting me, just the hum of a coffee machine and the warmth of a fresh start. My assistant, young but sharp, smiled and handed me a small gift box. Inside was a pen, clean metal, smooth in my hand. Engraved, built, not inherited. I didn't say much, just nodded and let the moment settle. I walked to the kitchenette, brewed my own coffee. No one watching over my shoulder. No family name shadowing my moves. Just quiet, peaceful, and real. Later that morning, I sifted through old files on my personal drive. I found a draft email I never sent. It was to her, my mother. Subject line, what you should have known. I clicked it open. It was raw. I had poured every ounce of betrayal, disappointment, longing into that email. A list of everything I thought she should have seen, should have done, but never did. My cursor hovered over send for a while. Then I moved it and hit delete. She wouldn't have read it the way I meant it anyway. I opened a new note and typed something else. Not what I wanted them to remember, but what I needed to remember about myself. I wrote, you stayed when no one clapped. You stood when they tried to erase you. And you built when they tried to break you. I closed the laptop. That was enough. By early afternoon, Wes stopped by with a stack of contracts and an envelope. I flipped it open without much care. Inside was a simple card from my mother, her handwriting shaky. It read, proud of you. Just wish it didn't have to be this way. Venus left a voicemail too. A flat tone, more pride-wounded than heartfelt. You won. Congrats. Maybe we talk someday. I didn't respond. Not from anger anymore, but because the story had moved on. Some people don't deserve a second act in your story, especially when they never showed up for the first one. That evening, I drove without thinking and ended up at a park near the river. I used to come here with Dad. We'd sit on the bench under the pecan trees. He'd talk about possibility like it was air. Back then, I thought the world was as simple as being good and working hard. I sat on that same bench. Time had peeled its paint, but it held me like before. A little boy was learning to ride nearby, wobbly, wailing. His mom held steady behind him. "You're doing great! Keep going!" she called out. Those words hit different, not because they were new, but because they were old, familiar. A stranger walking their dog passed by, nodded toward my laptop bag and asked, "So what do you do?" I looked up. I smiled. "I build second chances," I said. "And I just gave myself the best one yet."